Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Podcast Aquatic, the official podcast of the Tennessee Aquarium. Today, we're going to do another shorter form episode of the show, what we call a mic droplet, which is where I bring in one of the experts from here at the aquarium to talk for no more than 10 minutes, not including this introduction, about a topic. And in the case of today's discussion, we're going to focus in on octopuses. And to do that, I've brought in Danny Alexander, who, Danny, at this point, you're a senior aquarist, and I think you are probably the only person on staff, not by design, who has never been on this show. As far as the people who work with the animals, I think I've had pretty much everybody but you.
Well, and here I am, Casey. Yes, I have not done this till now. So let's go, man.
All right. So the timer has not yet started because I did want to take just a second to introduce you to people. So you are a senior aquarist, and your areas of responsibility are what? Obviously, you care for the octopus.
Yes, the octopus is probably one of the key things I take care of, one of the most interesting for sure. But I also coordinate feeding our biggest tank, the Secret Reef, which is, 618,000 gallons. And we have big sharks and all kinds of different species of rays and this and that in there. So I help coordinate feeding that.
All right. So you're clearly involved in a lot of different things. But the subject of today's mic droplet, Danny, is octopuses sure are weird. Elaborate. Today, we are very specifically focusing on our GPO, which is an acronym that we're probably going to be using a lot in the course of the discussion, which is the giant Pacific octopus that has its own exhibit, its own habitat down in the, now it's been recently moved, so it's now in the Island Life Gallery. It was formerly in Boneless Beauties. And I brought you in because today is October 8th, which is World Octopus Day, which makes sense if you think about it. October, oct, and 8, so 8 arms for octopuses. That is not one of the weird facts that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and start the timer now, and you've got 10 minutes to tell me 5 interesting facts that will blow people's minds about octopuses. Where do we want to start?
Well, that's pretty cool in itself, if you can imagine yourself having 8 arms. And along with those 8 arms, they've got more than 2,000 suction cups, and they can actually get a pretty strong grip on you with those suction cups. I think I read one time that one suction cup, one of the bigger suction cups of an adult octopus, giant Pacific, could hold 35 pounds. So if you think about that and all those suction cups that an octopus has, man, an octopus can wrestle with some pretty big stuff out there.
So we are calling this a giant Pacific octopus. How large are we talking? So giant implies obviously that they get pretty big.
Well, I guess we'd have to say, let's go with averages then, because I just read that there was a record octopus that was like close to 200 pounds and had a reach of close to 30 feet. But realistically, the average is more like 50 to 60 pounds in the wild anyway. We've had one for sure that got to 50 pounds. That was Beaver. That one, we really miss Beaver too.
Oh, Beaver was a legend.
He was, and he was our biggest octopus yet, I believe, at 50 pounds. So
how do you weigh an octopus? What does that process look like?
Well, with all those arms, it can be challenging, but we have these rubber nets that actually flex and give, and once they drop down in those rubber nets, their arms can come out of the net and they can actually kind of try to get a hold of you, but we're able to weigh them. I have been anyway with those rubber nets to make it easier. And there was one time we had a scale that we could just put on the floor, and we would just hold the octopus in some container and step on the scale. Let me think of the order of that.
So you get on, you weigh yourself, and then you hold
hold the octopus. That's it. Okay. So that's how I did it the last time, I believe.
Okay.
But we recently just got a new octopus that's very small, and it was only 4 pounds. So it came in at 4 pounds, and we didn't actually weigh it because it looked like it probably was about 4 pounds. So that's Nugget. That's our new octopus, and Nugget will go on exhibit here sometime soon.
So we don't always name our animals. In fact, you've probably listened to the podcast before and heard us talk about animals using just their species name, but some animals just rise to the level of getting a name. So you've mentioned Beaver. Now we've got Nugget. We've had Tabasco.
We had Sriracha. We had those two on exhibit at the same time, wow. Sriracha and Tabasco. Yeah.
All right. So so some animals just rise to the level of getting their own name. So what else have we got?
Well, you brought it to my attention, that donut-shaped brain, and I had to look into that a little bit, and you are absolutely right. And it says that donut-shaped brain kind of surrounds the esophagus. So, and then beyond the donut-shaped brain, they have the 8 other smaller neural centers that are basically like small brains that basically control each arm individually. So that's, again, something related to the arms. So you've got the donut-shaped central brain, and then you've got these little satellite brains that are controlling each arm separately. So they can like multitask big time because they can do different things with each arm. And man, I can't imagine.
So we got 9 brains. I think that trumps 8 arms any day for me.
I reckon you're right. You are right. Yeah.
The Tennessee Aquarium's Podcast Aquatic is made possible by support from the Tennessee Conservationist, the official magazine of Tennessee state parks. Each issue is filled with fascinating stories about Tennessee's native species, rich history, and unique culture. It's also your guide to exploring state parks and planning your next outdoor adventure. Subscribe today at tnconservationist.org. Okay, what other weird facts are there about octopuses or giant Pacific octopuses in general?
Well, let's take that skin of theirs. So that skin, they have the chromatophores, so they can change their color a little bit.
So let's back that up. Chromatophores is a word that people may not be familiar with. So what is a chromatophore?
The chromatophores are special skin cells that a number of animals have that they can use to change color and even texture of their skin.
So they're like full of pigment.
They are,
Yeah.
Yes, they have pigment in them, and they can manipulate that pigment. And actually, cuttlefish are really the masters at that. They can do it better, even better than the octopuses can. So the octopuses, generally, their color can vary from a dull gray to a deep, intense red. That's absolutely beautiful. And the octopus, one of our past octopuses, Greg, was one of the most beautiful octopuses that we've ever had. The most vibrant, intense red that I think I have ever seen in all our octopuses. But octopuses, they don't all retain the same color. So that color range is between like a dull gray, like I said. A lot of times when they're at rest, they're that dull gray. And then when they're active and young and vibrant and feeling feisty, then they can get that intense red sometimes.
What I love about them isn't just the fact that they can change the color, because I think a lot of people probably know they can change the color, but I think what's really interesting is that they can actually change the texture of their skin.
Oh, yes. And what I see most of the time as far as that texture change is like they'll be all, I call them horns. They almost look like a punk rocker with spiky hair because they have all these horns sticking up over their body. Now, I just figure, man, they must be feeling in a feisty mood or something. Not that I really see that, but a lot of times they can go from having a smooth surface on their skin to all these spikes sticking up, these little horns. And then they look pretty cool like that, though. They do.
And they're able to just, absolutely perfectly blend into whatever their environment is. And it is a matter of not just the color, but the color in combination with the texture. You can see them, the back wall of the exhibit is kind of rocky to replicate that rocky Pacific coastline that you would see off the coast of like Vancouver Island. And
Yes.
and they'll match not just that color, but also the texture of the rock. And if you don't know, and you're walking by and you're not pausing to look, you might think the exhibit is empty, but it's not. It's just that Scarlett has managed to find a way to replicate that look perfectly.
Yes. And giant Pacifics, there's so many species of octopuses out there. There's like 300 and some species. And the giant Pacific octopuses is pretty good at blending in with its environment and changing texture to help it do that. But there's an octopus like called the mimic octopus. It can look like another animal, another sea creature altogether. So that might be one up on the giant Pacifics as far as what they can do with their skin and color, with texture and color. But giant Pacifics are still cool as heck.
All right, Danny, we got time for one more fact.
Okay, so let's talk about their hearts.
Hearts, plural?
Yeah, they have 3 hearts. So why does an octopus need 3 hearts? Well, it has a main central heart that does most of the primary function for its life, but then it has 2 additional hearts that help circulate blood through the gills. So octopuses do have gills. They actually have 2 sets of gills. So they need a heart to help with pumping blood through those hearts to keep them oxygenated. Now, they cannot live without any one of those hearts, certainly not without their main central heart. But even if they lose one of their hearts for their gills, for one set of gills, they cannot survive that. So very critical that they have these hearts. And these hearts are pumping blood. And a real quick note on something else cool. This blood has a protein called hemocyanin, unlike our hemoglobin that we have. And hemocyanin is copper-based, so their blood has, when it mixes with oxygen, it has a little bit of a blue hue to it, unlike ours that once it mixes with oxygen has a red, very vibrant red. So yeah, octopuses have blue blood, like an alien. So they're kind of like an alien, a very graceful, cool alien.
All right. Well, I think with that, Danny, as much as we could probably go on for an hour, 2 hours talking about how amazing octopuses are, and we probably will. I'm confident that the subject of octopuses will work its way back into a full-length episode of the Podcast Aquatic at some point, and you will obviously be coming back to handle that discussion as well. But for this particular episode, this short mic droplet episode of the Podcast Aquatic, we're going to have to cut it there with some really interesting facts about octopuses. I mean, in 10 minutes, we managed to talk about 3 hearts, 9 brains, 2,000 suckers, changing not just their color, but their texture. And I think there's just, again, so much more we can talk about, and we will. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up. Danny, thank you very much for joining us in the studio dive cage for this mic droplet episode. Really appreciate your time and your expertise.
Casey, it's been fun hanging out, man.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to the next time. And if you have an idea for another episode of the Podcast Aquatic, whether that's a long form episode that can last up to an hour, or maybe a shorter quick hit question about nature or some of our animals, send that to me at podcast@tnaqua.org. And until next time, remember that every drop matters.